Travelfish. 25.
On this episode, we welcome back our old pal Stuart MacDonald from Travelfish to talk about the recovery of tourism in Thailand.
So if you have any questions about the latest developments in overtourism, secondary destinations, and much more, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee Krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 on a vacation, but decided to stay when, true story, I found my first mobile phone in the street on Tonglaw and finally felt like I belonged. R.I.P. Nokia 3310.
Dude, those 3310s were iconic. I had one for probably 3 or 4 years.
They're invincible. Someone out there still has my phone and is using it somewhere. Yeah.
That's probably true. And I met Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a 1-year teaching contract 23 years ago. Fell in love with strategically planning my travel during the Songkran holidays to avoid getting soaked, so I never left.
That is a good one. But are you doing anything this Songkran, or are you, like, just for listeners, we're recording this just a few days before Songkran, actually, to give us a little bit of a break. You got any plans?
The truth is, I'm going to strategically avoid getting soaked, except for the first time in several years, on one afternoon, I have a plan to meet some friends because a friend of mine, her boyfriend, has never done Songkran before. He's an American guy, never done Songkran. So I think I'm actually going to get drenched for the first time in many years.
Wow. Well, have fun with that.
Have you partaken in a long time?
Partooked? Yes, of course, because I have a kid, so I've got to go out every year.
Oh, you've been going, that's correct. You've been going out. So I haven't done it in a long time. It might be 10 years for me.
Usually we just go to a mall or something simple like that, but I haven't been down to Silom or anything crazy for a while, but I think it'll...
But with your son, you throw water, do you not, with your son, or no?
Yeah, he's got a big water gun ready to go, and
cool.
We usually go down to one of the malls, and they've got like a nice little kid-friendly area out the back.
Maybe I'll come by and blast him in the face.
That'd be great. Hey, turn around. Straight into
Say hi
face.
To Uncle Ed.
Uncle Ed says hello to my little friend.
I was just gonna. You stole my line. Damn it.
Sorry, that's what you say when you have a gun shooting at someone unsuspecting. Anyway, it'll be fun.
All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind the scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Greg's trip to Singapore and how it compares to Bangkok in terms of weather and yoga pants. A new survey that places Thailand 12th in the world in terms of the number of sexual partners on average people have. And thoughts on the island of Koh Tao and whether the suspiciously high number of deaths there are actually higher than average or just get higher than average press coverage. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Yeah, baby. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi or happy Songkran, head to BangkokPodcast.com, click the little microphone button on the bottom right and leave us a voicemail that we can play on the show.
For sure.
Alrighty then, on part 2 of 2, we welcome back our old friend, one of Asia's original travelers and travel writers, one Mr. Stuart MacDonald from Travelfish.org. Now, last time Stu was on the show, before last week that is, way back in 2018 for episode 12 of season 3, talking about, funnily enough, overtourism. Now, little did we know that a year after we recorded that show, Thailand's tourism industry would be stopped dead in its tracks by COVID, from which things are only now recovering from. So we were happy that we were able to sit down with Stu again to talk about Thailand's tourism recovery, the scourge of quote-unquote high-quality tourists, their obsession with soft power, and what the devil's lettuce can add or take away from the tourism equation in Thailand. So here is part 2 of our conversation with Stu MacDonald.
So one thing I like about this this issue of sustainable tourism, it's actually different from the normal dichotomy of environmentalism versus business. So, because I'm a veteran of, American political wars, and it's always like lefties care about the environment, and then people on the right care about business, and they care about human beings, while lefties are fighting for the spotted owl.
Okay, yeah.
But this is different because what you're saying is that if you want to preserve the tourism business, you have to preserve the environment. You have to give people a reason to go there.
Yeah.
So it's not choosing one. Like you're at least trying to make the argument that if you want to, like the beaches or whatever it is, it's like you can't overwhelm these areas, destroy the environment, because then no one will want to go there anymore.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like you can be pro environment and pro business if you do it right.
Yeah, if you're balancing things. I think one of the issues with the whole sustainable tourism thing is it has come out of a development, like it's a development driven kind of thing, you know. It's not like we're not getting into degrowth and that kind of stuff, where although like Thailand could certainly do with that on a tourism base. It's just about like, how do we guarantee that there is still going to be something worth going to in 20 years from now? Because if there isn't, that's a problem for these countries in Southeast Asia that are overly dependent on tourism.
I want to talk a little bit about the bureaucrats in Thailand, their obsession with high quality tourists.
Oh God.
Well, this is
drink.
Yeah, really.
Now, I was talking about this with on Discord with some of our patrons, and I mentioned to that you were coming on, and one of them, who goes by the name of Corporal Zod, don't know his real name, but Corporal Zod, this is for you. He said, he's like, see if you can throw Stu this question. He said, so the younger backpackers spend more at local places and stay longer. That scans for me. Is the fact that they're not being courted by the government and DAT any big interests mainly due to the fact that smaller local places don't have any sort of lobbying power? Has there been any attempt to try to create a trade organization or lobbying arm for these small fry to be able to pool their influence and compete to grab the ears, quote unquote, of policymakers?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I'm a reform backpacker, and I think if you look at tourism through development, sort of like floating everybody's boats, backpackers, they stay longer, they stay in more diverse areas, they tend to spend more directly with local people, and they have a lower rate of leakage. So leakage is like if you have, say, if you have an inbound tour coming here from the UK, and let's say you spend $10,000 on that tour to Thailand, excluding flights, typically somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 of those dollars would stay in Thailand.
Okay.
The rest is a leakage, so it's about 60%. It can be much higher. Luxury is definitely the most leakage-prone area. It's your imported foods or your F&B, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So, and this sort of gets to the core of this idiocy about quality tourists, because and this isn't just a Thailand thing, it's very prevalent in Indonesia and Vietnam as well, where they talk about, we want quality tourists, but what they really mean is we want people to come, stay a short time, spend a lot of money, and leave.
To get the turnover.
They want that. What they really mean is high spending tourists.
Sure, of course.
But they're ignoring that at that end of the stick, they're very leaky tourists. So even though they might be spending more money, more of that money is getting offshored, or it's going to
right. It's when you decide, hey, I want to appeal to the wealthiest or really wealthy people. Well, then you need 5-star hotels. You those people. Those are the people who can go anywhere in the world. So you now you have to compete with Paris and New York, and you know what I mean. And so then you have to have a Hilton or something like that, which of course is going to be more leakage, to use your terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's, if you're a destination, you have to play to what your strengths are and not just try to recreate another high-so thing.
Right.
Because a high-so thing could almost be anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, this is like you take like Six Senses as an example, the luxury hotel chain. That sort of stick and look of those properties is now very common You'll see that kind of thing everywhere.
It's generic.
And it's totally generic.
Mm.
And so from the destination's point of view, investing in that kind of stuff is really high risk, because the punter can just as easily go to Vietnam or Bali or whatever for the exact same experience.
Right. But if you're dealing with like homestays and local experiences that are totally unique and set up by the locals and the families, it's got a much more direct benefit to the community.
Absolutely. The money is going to that old lady or whoever is running the business.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the it's basically been a 20-year debacle, the Thailand elite visa or whatever. I remember when this was under Thaksin when they first proposed it, my jaw dropped. I don't know if you remember this, but the original plan is that it was going to cost $1 million.
Yeah.
That was the original plan. And then the government under Thaksin estimated they would sell 25,000. And I was just reading this like, on what planet do you live?
Yeah.
I mean, and then I don't even know what the status of that program now. It's changed like 1 million times, but it's like way cheaper now. Like whatever it is.
Just putting the price up though.
They clearly, I think, don't understand this elite.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like I said earlier, Thailand's a very easy place to travel in. It's reasonably safe and affordable and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what the TAT keeps coming out with, like they come out with some campaign and it's like, my God, like I have no idea where they get their ideas from, but they came out with something last year that was trying to encourage people to travel to like the second tier destinations and that kind of stuff, particularly up in Isan and that kind of thing. And I think that's smart.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But the thing is that, I mean, if you go back to like the early 90s, you could go up country in Thailand almost anywhere, and there would be, not only would there be backpackers, but there would be small little homestays and guest houses and that kind of thing. Now, not so much. When Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia all opened up, then people started traveling much further, and they still only got the 3 months. So instead of spending 3 months in Thailand, they were spending 3 months in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. So you run out of time.
I see.
So you go like up to, I don't know, Thap Panom or Mesot or something like that, where there used to be great little guest houses, and they're all gone now. So I think it would be great for them to come up with inventive, imaginative ideas of ways to get people up into other parts of the country. But I don't see a lot. I mean, you were asking earlier about, or the guy who sent you the question, Mr. Zod.
Corporal Zod, please.
Zod. I just don't think, like, there is a lot of anti-backpacker stuff that comes from governments. They're like, oh, they're taking drugs and they're sleeping with our women and all this kind of stuff, Right. And it's like, guys, like, take a step back and think about it. If you really want to be supporting a part of the industry that is low impact, that is going to disperse where tourists are, then budget travel is like, it's the obvious.
It's also
candidate.
how people fall in love with Thailand and end
Exactly.
up staying a long time, right?
Exactly.
And they become advocates. They become ambassadors.
Yeah,
for
and
Thailand
they come back.
home.
Repeat tourists that we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like we were talking about this whole new ridiculous soft power thing, but there are some good things about it. Where they were talking about a Muay Thai visa. Like I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Get people here, make them fall in love with Thailand, and then when they go back, they're going to be spreading the love.
I mean, a lot of it comes back. Like, everyone is forever moaning about visas and all of this kind of stuff, And like, I've written numerous pieces saying Thailand should have a 6-month backpacker visa.
Of course,
right?
sure.
And then Thais will come back and say, oh yeah, but then Farangs will use it to work illegally. And it's like, yeah, some probably will, but the net result will probably be increase in people traveling here for longer.
But what can backpackers do? They can teach English or maybe work online, like be digital nomads, which doesn't really hurt Thailand anyway.
Nomad visa.
Like they're not going to take a Thai person's job.
Yeah.
As a backpacker.
And again, there's not hordes of people overseas. Like, I wish I could go and work in Thai. It's just that damn visa problem.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's sort of acknowledging the fact that a lot of people want to work when they're here because they want to stay here.
That's right.
You
Sure.
know?
Right.
Well, they were talking about a digital nomad visa. Is there one now? That was a thing that was. I thought they were working on it or something.
They keep thrashing. The same in Indonesia. But I think the digital nomad thing sounds good in principle, but the taxation, like, it gets very, very complicated. It sounds really great when you're riding it on the back of a beer coaster, but
Right.
when you sit down to actually figure out the math and how it's going to work, it gets super complex, super fast.
How about a weed visa? Come here and learn how to grow marijuana for 3 months. I mean,
Yeah, why not?
People lined up.
It is part of Thai traditional medicine, a Thai traditional medicine visa.
That's right.
I mean, the like, just to stick with the weed for a sec, like we were talking earlier. I mean, I just find it astonishing. You know, like when we were living here, it was very different situation with weed, and now there's like more pot shops and mini marts. It's just
and to me, I've seen very little harm from it. I mean, I think there's too many shops now, and I think the market it'll shake out.
It's free market.
But if I feel like if we've learned anything, is that there's really no harm to recreational weed, even though the government now is insisting they don't want recreational. I'm like, why not? It's like what horrible thing has happened in the last 18 months?
I think they could probably take a bit of a step back. I think there is too much of it. Like there's too many shops.
It's a little bit too easy, right?
Yeah, and and this is really just a gut feeling, and I don't know that there's any connection between this and the pot, but there does definitely seem like, I'm staying in Chinatown. There is definitely more homeless, and I would say mentally distressed looking people than I ever remember seeing here before.
I don't see how that could be connected to the cannabis, but who knows? I mean,
well, yeah, I don't know whether it's yaba or whatever. Like a lot of women sleeping rough on the side of the road, which I don't remember ever seeing here.
I mean, still compared to other cities, there's not that many homeless here, but it may be more than before.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't know if there's any connection. Like it could be like something totally unrelated.
Do you think, do you, or have you studied or come across data on cannabis affecting the number of tourists? Like, do you have any idea of?
No.
I wonder if there's been any research to figure that out, or surveys.
There's been like a lot of conjecture about it, and I think it's.
I mean, if I was choosing, so I've never been to Bali. I've always wanted to go, but the fact, if I had to choose between Thailand, where I knew I could smoke, and then Bali, where I knew I couldn't, I would probably come to Thailand.
Right. And I think that's very true. The penalties in Indonesia are very hard, very harsh.
I don't want to have to worry about it, right?
Yeah. But I don't know that it's. On one hand, well, this is the thing. Like, on one hand, they're saying we want quality tourists, and on the other hand, let's everyone get here to get stoned. And
that's quality. I mean, that's quality tourists.
The pot's not cheap, but I don't know if that's quite what they were thinking.
This could possibly all fit together in that we've done several shows about the cannabis laws, and one of the problems that has happened. It's not really an effect on Thai society, but one of the problems is there's a lot of the weed here is illegally smuggled in because there's an excess in the West, especially Canada. Apparently, Canada just has warehouses full of weed, and so people have been illegally importing it, and so Thai farmers have not been benefiting to the extent that they should.
Really?
So yeah.
Interesting.
So this is one of the. There's different factions that are trying to re-regulate things, but to me, the good faction, it wants stricter punishment on smuggling, and they've set up a way to certify the weed from the Thai farmer to the store to make sure it was grown here.
Right.
And I support that like 1,000,000%.
Yeah, sure.
Because I want, in a way, it's a little. I guess in a way, it's kind of a type of leakage. So what's happening is these Canadian. Nothing wrong with Canadians,
Blame
of course.
Canada.
Bloody Canada.
No, but they have an excess, and so they're dumping it very cheaply, but they're still making money. Dumping their excess.
And Canada grows on the side of the road.
And then the Thai farmers don't. So a huge amount of the weed here is apparently illegal. Like my buddy, who's a consultant in the business, he thinks it's 50 to 75% of the weed is illegally imported.
Wow.
Because historically, it's not that hard to get things in Thailand illegally, even in a large quantity.
Right. Anyone who's read the
Yeah.
novel Mr. Nice, he had a pretty significant operation
I mean,
coming through here.
when we were living here, so like through the late 90s into early 2000s, a friend would go down to the piers at Clontarf and they would buy it off the pallet.
Oh, wow.
And they were
Wow.
they were shaped like chocolate bars. They were about this big, so thick like this.
You seem to know a lot about this.
I heard about it from a friend.
His friend, you know.
But that stuff, all supposedly talking to this guy, it came from Koh Kong in Cambodia.
Oh.
And would come across and then bring it down the river.
Gotcha.
Saying this to you earlier that we should do, I famously have never tried smoking marijuana, but we should do a show where I smoke up at the beginning and then just see where it goes.
I would love to experience that. I'll be your tour guide, Mr. Greg.
What a role model for my
I've
son.
become much more of a connoisseur. Like I've smoked for a long time, but I was never a pothead, even though I look like one.
I wasn't going to say anything.
The honest to God truth is I've always been a casual smoker, always enjoyed it. But since it's been legal, I've
kicked it up a notch.
I've upped my consumption, and I'm much more of a connoisseur now because
Right.
there's so many varieties, and
I know, right?
it's so I like to experiment and try this and try that.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm loving it.
I was on Khao San the other night. I went up to have a look and put my finger on the pulse of that little.
Just doing research, of course.
Yeah. And I mean, I spent some time in some of the shops, and everyone's really friendly. And I'm like, I don't even understand what half of this means.
Sure.
Please explain it to me. And they were very patient, and it was fun.
It's just not harmful. That's like, I swear, I know I'm repeating myself, but this is just, to me, this has been, an 18-month experiment in essentially recreational weed. It's totally unregulated.
Yeah.
We had a woman named Kitty Chopaka on the show, and she's become kind of a
Ganjapreneur.
Yeah, she's a ganjapreneur, but she's been on a million podcasts, like interviewed on CNN. But she sees herself as an advocate for the local farmers, and she just said there's more regulations on garlic than there is on weed in Thailand now. It's
Wow.
essentially just open.
Free-for-all.
It is a free for all.
Now that I have smoked.
Right.
Delicious.
So to me that's the worst possible case. Yet I don't see the harm other than there's probably too many shops and maybe it smells bad in some.
It does kind of stink. Yeah, I don't like it.
So to me, this is proof that recreational doesn't really have a big downside.
Yeah, I mean, when we were on Koh Kut in December, and my daughter and I went diving, and all three of the dive shops we went into to talk to about the diving and everything, they're all baked.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't mind talking to baked people, but when I'm there wanting to look at gear and check that stuff is safe and that kind of thing.
And you don't want your dive instructor to be baked, probably.
I would prefer you are not stoned. Please,
yeah, sure.
So I think there's that's what I mean when I said earlier about taking a bit of a step back. Of
Agreed.
Just sort of,
Agreed.
But generally, it's certainly interesting.
I mean, they have to find a way to make sure Thai farmers are benefiting.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
It's just it's a horrible. I mean, this is what Kitty just talks about over and over again, that Thai farmers are getting ripped off. And it's all due to Canada.
Right.
We can just blame Canada.
Yeah, they're all trouble.
But I mean, the bottom line is it could be, if TAT was smart about it, then it could be one of the facets of Thai tourism, if handled correctly. Because there's a lot of people that, it's very rare, but I occasionally have to go to Dubai or fly through Dubai. And I once read a story about a random guy from Jamaica who got harassed in Dubai because they were so sure he would have weed. He's just some Rasta guy. And they thoroughly searched him, and he was very careful and had no weed. And then they checked the bottom of his shoe, and there was one cannabis seed stuck in the bottom of his shoe, and he got arrested. And this was in the news. This was in the news because the Jamaican government protested this whole thing. And ever since then, I've been super paranoid because I'm always afraid I have a little baggie in my shirt. I forgot this shirt pocket.
Well, there's one thing that helps paranoia: it's smoking weed.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so Thailand, which is if I didn't already live here and I had to choose between, Bali or wherever, or, because it's almost illegal everywhere else, like Malaysia, right?
Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore. I mean, I would come here for sure.
Yeah.
So it could boost tourism.
Yeah, I think like that's a really interesting point about like how could you turn that into a tourism thing other than just sitting around getting baked, right?
Right.
So I know I keep going back to Bali, but it's just like I'm quite familiar with it. So there's a thing there about bamboo. So they do all of the bamboo architecture, and they make some incredible buildings and stuff. And so they have set up an education center, which is super popular with foreigners, but Indonesians do it as well, where they're trained how to grow the bamboo sustainably, how to treat it, how to build with it, like all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's never going to be a huge part of the industry, but it's an important little bit. And people will come and do that course, which goes for like a week or something like that. And then you go and do other stuff.
But there's so many ancillary benefits to that. Those people leave Bali and they're like, I did the most amazing thing in Bali.
Exactly. So with the pot, you get some like Thai farmers who are growing it, go up, show me how you make it. I don't want to sound like a wanker, but to say a more sophisticated way of pushing it.
True. That's
right?
I think that's legit.
Rather than just saying, hey, look, here's a really stoned person like relaxing on Khao San.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's super interesting, you know?
People leave here with a massage certificate. Why not a 6-week
growing cannabis thing?
Yeah.
Well, we're running into the perennial problem. Greg and I have talked about this. It's that there's something weird about the Thai government is that they can never be officially liberal.
Right.
So even though everyone knows there's all kinds of liberal stuff happening in Thailand that everyone knows about, it's the Thai government never admits to being like liberal about anything.
Right.
Like officially they have to be conservative about everything, even if on the ground it has nothing to do with reality.
Right.
you know? Yeah. So this is why I doubt they'll ever. I mean, I think we're going to get some re-regulation that I think probably won't be that strict. But I doubt the TAT will ever. They'll never have the guts to use it to promote, which they should.
Yeah.
Because they have to officially say it's wrong.
Right.
Right.
They have to. That has to be the official thing, even if it's on every street corner.
And that's anathema to their well-established official position.
Yeah. Drives me crazy.
I mean, when I was on Khao San the other day, because they've got the new shiny police station on the corner and everything, and there's a dude selling pot right out front of it.
For sure, no, it's everywhere.
No,
second
well, that's how it used to be. You buy it off the cop,
right.
you know?
That's right. No, it's everywhere, especially around Khao San. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of it is illegally imported, unfortunately.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, as we're wrapping up here, I want to talk a little bit about media and how this is affecting tourism and how people perceive and think of things in places. Another patron I was talking to on Discord, BKK Vuck. I don't know their real names, but we've got Corporal Zob and BKK Vuck. Okay. He said, can you ask Stu what he thinks about the proliferation of shocking/boring YouTubers? Oh my God, Bangkok is so modern and westernized. Oh my God, it's so cheap here. Or the millionth take on Sukhumvit, the millionth take on the Siam shopping area. I just saw a thumbnail for one along the lines of, we just thought Bangkok was a place of history and temples. Like, you know, it's just so many videos, and the overexposure in media is crazy because everyone's got a phone. That means everyone's able to take pretty good looking HD videos and upload it to the entire planet.
Yeah.
But you're saying they're pimping. So that question is about like pimping the shopping malls, is what you're saying?
No, specifically, no. It's just the like Ed and I have talked a lot about this. Like, we're old school audio radio guys. We don't have a YouTube channel. And it seems that there's so many YouTube channels about let's say Bangkok are just basically, here's me at a market, here's me at a shopping mall, here's me at a massage place, but they're not really digging deeper than that. And there are exceptions, of course, like BKK Pat, Bangkok Pat. He does some really good, some investigative historical videos on Bangkok, and there's several other channels. But it seems that the majority of them are just a guy walking around with a video camera, and they're not really doing it any favors.
I think there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah,
for starters. I mean, it's like the outrage machine, and it's like and. You know, what's the big deal? But I think for people coming and making like naff videos about me doing whatever, you know, I mean, you can't expect a lot of nuance and depth when they only got off the plane the previous day. So I think it's unfair to sort of say this is vacuous and pointless.
I guess the onus is on the consumer too. Like, if I'm looking to research a place and want some deep historical insights, I'm not going to look at, Smiley Guy 99.
Well, an example, a couple of weeks ago, a travel writer got in touch with me and was asking about how to work sustainable tourism stuff better into their travel writing. So I used as an example, I was talking about Kokut, and I said, well, you could talk about slavery in the fishing industry, which is a huge problem in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe tell people they shouldn't have a seafood barbecue, right? As an example. And then she said, well, what about the pork? And I'm like, well, I don't know about the pork, And so like that kind of thing becomes really difficult. But then they also said, but how do you know all this stuff? And I said, well, I've been in the region for 30 years, right? Reading and writing about it, If someone has just got off the boat, you can't expect them to know. I think it's a bit cheeky to expect a lot more than a fairly vacuous video of me in the back of a tuk-tuk, because everybody has been that person.
Yeah.
I certainly was.
Sure.
Thank Christ there was no social media when I was 21. But,
Right.
I think it would be nice for people to perhaps think before they post something occasionally, like, does the internet really need this video or photo? Even if you still do, like I upload loads of garbage,
Sure.
Thinking about that kind of thing. But I think it's also for travelers to think about, doing something a bit different, not doing the stuff that has already been done to death. Like, who needs another guide to a luxury hotel in Sukhumvit? Go find me a family-run homestay in Nakhon Nowhere.
Right.
I'll watch that.
Right.
And like just doing more interesting things. And with a sustainable tourism kind of
like
thing
the guy
in your head, just thinking about this stuff.
Like, to me, that stuff, it's almost really more about the ego of the person. It's like they actually think they're doing something special, even though they are the 10,000th person to do it.
Right.
It's like, look at me on Sukhumvit. It's like,
I discovered this market.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there's
it's
Chinese tour bus.
I mean, in a way, I guess you can't blame them in the sense that for them it is special. But then they're sending it out to the world, to millions of people.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with them making that video. More power to them. If that's something that their friends and family watch, that's great. But I think there's just so much of it out there. It's hard to know where to get real sort of nuanced.
Well, I mean, the information overload is like that. That's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And you've got AI coming, and that's just going to put it on steroids.
Yep.
So,
It's like the guy that sent us an email and he asked us if we wanted to have him on as a guest to talk about what it's like dating Thai women.
Oh, geez. Sorry, dude. We got that covered.
That's covered.
We got that. That's totally covered.
Yeah.
Well, Stu, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thanks so much, man. It's been really interesting sitting down.
My
Good to
pleasure.
see you again.
Always good to catch up.
Where can people find out more of Stu Inc.?
Oh, where am I now? Like keep running away from social media. So I'm not on Twitter anymore. I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you just search LinkedIn, you'll find me. Threads and Mastodon a little bit, but not a lot. I'm nowhere near as much on social
media. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, Travel Fishery. Yeah.
And travelfish.org.
Yep, that's the main site.
Right. And your newsletter, of course, is really, really well done. Always some interesting information in there. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's good stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. All right, Stu. Thank you, sir. Good to sit down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stu.
We'll see you soon.
Man, you and I have talked before about these repeating problems in Thailand, and this issue of high quality tourists just will not go away. I feel like 10 years ago, the pursuit of high quality tourists was thoroughly debunked. I feel like it's just an old idea that's just been debunked and hammered into the ground as like a bad strategy, and then every year, like the TAT, they talk about high quality tourists again. Like, what is the obsession? It's like it's a bizarre obsession with high quality tourists.
Yeah, they just sort of assume that someone, if they got a lot of money, they're going to land in Thailand and start just like making it rain. But in reality, they sort of, they high quality tourists tend to stay in their own little bubble. But
no, I learned a lot. I mean, I knew some of what Stu mentioned, but I learned a lot. This whole idea of like leakage and like money. Just because money's spent in Thailand, it doesn't mean Thai people are benefiting. I was pretty ignorant about that. I didn't know the details about it. So that's interesting stuff.
Right, right. And it's just, I mean, backpackers get a little bit of a short shrift because, if you've spent any time down on Khao San Road, let's face it, if you're wearing like some skanky Chang singlet and a pair of old dirty flip-flops with dreadlocks down to the middle of your back, you're probably not going to, drum up the image of like, spending a lot of money or supporting the local economy. But the fact is that those people they travel slower, they travel longer, and they travel closer to the local community. So they actually have long-term benefits. So,
and then as we talked about, those are the people who become listeners of the Bangkok podcast, and they end up moving here and living here for 20 years.
Supporting the country and buying weed, which is another thing that Stu talked about. It's so funny to hear him sort of like his mind is just like, the amount of weed stores here is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it still hasn't panned out. I mean, that's a different topic, but you and I keep waiting to do another show on weed whenever something gets resolved, and then nothing gets resolved. So we haven't done a show on it in a while.
Yeah, that's right. And also many thanks to some of our patrons who sent some questions in for Stu, so we got to those as well. But always great to sit down with Stuart. Very cool guy. And again, if you haven't already subscribed to the Travelfish newsletter, get over to his website and subscribe, because every week it's got some really good links with stories all around the region, and you'll get caught up and be smart like me and Ed here.
Definitely. No doubt about that.
All right, let's check in with our new segment called Idiom Proof, where we try to learn a little bit more about Thai culture by investigating one of the many funny and creative Thai idioms that we've come across. To help us with the correct pronunciation, we've asked our friend Bank to read it for us first, and then we will discuss it. Take it away, Bank.
กุหลาบริมทาง กุหลาบริมทาง
So I'm going to try and copy Bank here. Gulab rim tang, a rose on the edge of the path, which is slang for prostitute.
Are you sure? Maybe it just means good landscaping.
I mean, rose on the edge of the path. What could that possibly mean other than beauty? And
it could be just good landscaping. Who knows?
Good landscaping. Gulab rim tang, a rose on the edge of the path. She's a prostitute. That's an interesting one.
I like it. But I got to admit, I feel like there's a lot of Thai idioms that relate to prostitutes. There's a lot of metaphors and nicknames Thai people have for prostitutes.
I got to say, ever since my first days learning Thai, I've always thought that the Thai is designed to trip up Westerners, because when we say the right word the wrong way, more often than not, it seems to default to something filthy or embarrassing.
Agreed. Yeah, mispronouncing stuff is a dangerous path in the world of Thai. But anyway, let this idiom be a warning to you, gentlemen out there. If you want to compliment your Thai girlfriend, do not call her a rose on the edge of the path.
Right.
Hold off on that.
A rose on the edge of the path is a prostitute. It's actually, I mean, it's a lovely sounding. Do we have anything in English like that, or that sounds lovely?
I don't think we do.
Like streetwalker, lady of the night.
Yeah,
those are nice.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So the danger with this is it sounds like a compliment, but I'm guessing most Thai women would not take it as a compliment.
Probably not. You know what I also learned years and years ago is the phrase golden flower.
Geez, dude, what have you been watching?
Dok Tong. It basically means the same thing. It means slut. So I remember
you go.
I called my ex-girlfriend, I called her like my golden girl or something like that. Or I was making a joke about the golden girls, and she's like, ooh, be careful. You don't want to call me a golden flower.
Jeez.
It's a minefield.
Thai language is a minefield. No doubt about that.
Yeah. There you go. Rose on the edge of the path. Thanks, Bank. And I will be sure not to use that going forward.
Yes. Thank you, Bank. Alrighty. A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcasts on social media, BangkokPodcast.com on the web, or simply BangkokPodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay cool, and we'll see you back here next week.
No doubt.
I'm thinking about building like buying some supplies and ordering some soundproof foam and building like a little cage that I can
Sure.
put just around my microphone.
For sure.
Because over the past little while, I've been doing some sort of extra voiceover work for a few different projects,
cool.
and I've noticed that I do have a bit of an echo in my room if you listen very closely.
Oh. No, I've seen those things. Yeah.
Get me sounding like a real professional.
Heck yeah. Get your Barry White thing going on.
Sorry, baby. All right.